Rev up your engines! BTA says, hey, all you guys here are asking questions like he's going to respond to them. Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not a robot Scotty. I'm a real Scotty. When I say live, I am live. Now, you see these videos later on. I turn them into videos with funny pictures and stuff to make them even better, to improve them. This is the raw material that they're built from. But the reason I do this on Thursdays and Saturdays is to answer people's questions about cars with honest answers, with no baloney. And I'm not selling you anything. Any products I talk about are stuff I tried out. No company pays me to talk about their stuff. I don't do paid advertising. Now, I do make money on YouTube. It's Google. And Google runs advertisements all over the place that I have nothing to do with. It's just like TV when I was a kid. They'd have a Ford ad, Chevy ad, and a Dodge ad all in a row because all the companies wanted to get their message out, so they all came out. I don't pick Google ads. Google just randomly throws them out there. I have nothing to do with them other than to give me a penny when you watch one of my ads. So I'm here to answer your questions. Ask them, please. That's what I do. Melvin Wade, who says, Scotty, I got a question with my 2010 Mazda 6. My check engine light keeps coming on from time to time saying the MAF sensor's bad. I replaced it twice and the light still comes on. All right, it's a good question. It happens all the time. Numero uno, make sure you're using original equipment. They're very complex technical sensors that give the atmospheric pressure compared to engine vacuum pressure. If it's not the factory original equipment, it's some cheap piece of crap made in China, that's your problem. That's what it is a lot of the times. But if it's not, there's only two things that can really go wrong. One is the wiring going from the MAF sensor back to the main computer has a short, or the connector's dirty, clean it with spray electrical cleaner. Or the driver circuit inside the main computer is shot, and so it'll keep tripping the code. Now, if it runs okay, a lot of people live with it, doesn't really hurt anything. But if it is the wiring of the computer, you're going to have to trace it through. It can be a pain in the butt. If you did not use an original equipment, went and bought the cheapest one you could at a discount auto parts store, problem is you probably got a crappy sensor. Corey says, Grandpa used to have a 2017 to 18 Hyundai Santa Fe. All of a sudden, it starts shaking and have trouble driving forward. Was it the tranny? He ended up trading it. Smart move to trade it. They're not that well made. Now, lots of things can make a car shake and not drive forwards right, but knowing those Korean cars, it's usually the transmission going out, so when you try to move, the transmission does exactly what it says. It transmits the power of the engine and transmits them to the wheels so the wheels can spin and move. And if your car won't move forward much on those, most of the time it's a problem inside the transmission. Now, if it ever happens to you, it's pretty easy to figure out. You get a good scan tool or you pay a mechanic like me, we hook it up, take it for a spin, and our machine gives us all the transmission and engine data, and we could easily see if it was the transmission by looking at the transmission data. And it often is. That's why I tell people not to buy Korean cars. The trannies aren't that good. David Cruz said, Scotty, can a bad computer make my 2006 Dodge Stratus 2.4 liter turbo with 160 kilometers get horrible gas mileage, 9 miles a gallon? Dodges are gas hogs, but a Stratus with a 2.4 should get a lot better than 9 miles a gallon. Here is the thing. Does it run okay? If it runs okay otherwise, it's you. It's not the car. I've had turbo cars that I road tested. I wouldn't buy one because they wear out too fast, but I like driving them when I'm working on them or if a company gives me a car to test. But I had a Ford. That sucker was rated at 17 miles a gallon. I got 3 because I was driving like a lunatic. So if you drive like a lunatic, you're going to get crappy gas mileage with any turbocharged engine. Keep revving that baby up. It doesn't matter how small your engine is. I've had motorcycles that were rated at 40 miles a gallon. I got 12. You drive them hard enough, you're going to get crappy gas mileage. Now, if it isn't running right, yeah, it could be the computer, could be lots of things. Pistons could be worn, lots of things. But you want to see if you really have a problem. This is the simplest thing to do. Hold your horses and don't step on the gas all the way. Go on a 140, 50 mile trip on a highway, do the speed limit. If 65, go 65. Fill it up before you get in the highway. After you go 100 something miles, fill it up again. See what your gas mileage is. And if it's normal, it's not the car, it's that you're driving it hard. And if you're going to constrain yourself to 65 miles an hour on a highway and you get good gas mileage, there's nothing wrong with the car. Check it that way. Caleb says, Lucas or mystery oil for loud rockers valves. Well, if they're really worn out, nothing's going to fix them. They're just wearing out. They're clattering because they're worn out and the gaps are too big. There's nothing you can do about that, right? But Lucas is a heavier oil. And if you put a heavier oil in, a lot of times it will quiet them down a little bit. It also has a bunch of additives in it. But realize this, let's say you got a modern vehicle that's made for 0W10 oil. You can't put that thick Lucas stuff in, it's too thick. You run thick oil, the engine will wear out because it's made for light oil and it won't lubricate through all the small holes when you start the engine up fast enough. On the other hand, Marvel Mystery Oil is a great penetrating oil. Let's say you're hearing clacking noises because your hydraulic lifters are kind of worn and they're clogged up. If you ever took out a hydraulic lifter, they look like a little cylinder and there's a bunch of springs and stuff inside and they have tiny holes. The holes where the oil pressure builds the pressure up. If those are clogged, it'll clack. Marvel Mystery Oil is one of the best oils for getting rid of any kind of corrosion. They'll open up things, anything that's rusted on metal, clogged up. It's a very good penetrating oil. So, depends what's wrong. If it's lifters, I'd try the Marvel Mystery Oil because that's great for cleaning out lifters. Then the noise might go away. Because if it's because the holes are clogged, as soon as that cleans them out, the oil pressure builds up and they'll stop clacking. James Caramello says, what are your thoughts on older Volvos? I love the way they drive and handle. Well, if you love them, go ahead and get one. Originally, Volvo made tanks, and the things can basically last almost forever. They were really well made. Then unfortunately started to mass produce them more and they went from their rear wheel drive jobs to front wheel drive jobs. They made a lot of mistakes. The company almost went bankrupt. Ford bought them, got rid of them. GM had to deal with them. They got rid of them. Now they're owned by the Chinese. But the old ones, they're pretty solid built. Just realize if you're talking about a car that's 20 to 40 years old, there's a lot of crap that can just be flat worn out. Seals, belts, hoses, right? So there's a lot of crap you don't have to worry with. But they were pretty solid built vehicles, especially the ones with just the 4-cylinder engines, non-turbos. They had enough power and they could last for 500,000 miles or more. There's a guy with an old Volvo, a P18, I think he had 1 million miles on that thing. Swedes originally really knew how to make cars. There's no arguing with that. Of course, now they're owned by the Chinese and they say they're only going to make electric and hybrid cars. We'll see how it pans out in the future, but they're completely different than they used to be. Zach says, Scotty, I love the content. What are some things that will cause reduced fuel economy? Extra weight in your car. You got crap, golf bags, whatever, weights for exercising in the trunk, take them out. Give your tires the right amount of air. If they're too low, the tires are squashed, more friction, they'll get worse gas mileage. If they're too full and hard, the middle stick out, you get more friction that way too. And it's going to get worse gas mileage. Make sure you got a clean air filter. For every gallon of gas, you burn up thousands of cubic feet of air. So you want to make sure your fuel injectors aren't clogged and dirty. Buy regular gas at a regular station and you really won't have to worry about getting bad gas. Basically, drive conservatively. One of the worst things of gas mileage isn't the car, it's the driver. My grandfather had a guy at the Texaco gas station when I was a teenager working there. You didn't tune my car up right. I'm getting horrible gas mileage. So my grandfather goes for a ride with me at a Buick. He'd step on the gas and peel out. And then he'd slam on the brake at the stop sign. He'd peel out again. My grandfather said, you're lucky you're getting 10 miles a gallon the way you're driving. My grandfather had the same Buick. And he'd get like 16, 17 miles a gallon. This guy was getting 10. The way he was driving. A lot of it has to do with not being a conservative driver. John Smith says, what do you think of the quality of a 2022 Toyota Yaris Automatic as a daily basic driver? You hit the nail on the head. Basic driver. I'm not a fan of them. I think they ride kind of crappy. They're kind of small. They're kind of ugly. But as basic drivers, I had customers in Houston that had them with 180, 190,000. Never touched anything except oil and filter and brake pads. Decent built vehicles for a basic transportation. You don't want to go cross country in them. They're not that comfortable. They do get phenomenal gas mileage. And then they kind of bumpy on the rides. Bangity, bangity, bang. But as a basic vehicle, yeah, they're pretty good basic vehicles. Donsu says, Scotty, what do you think about high water pressure? Are they good for washing cars? They are, with one caveat. One thing you got to worry about. Not too much pressure. If you've seen any of my videos, there's a company out there called Giraffe, and they sent me this great 100-foot long pressure washer. It's hanging on the garage, on the wall, it bolts on, and then you got the wand with 100 feet, so you can go all over the place, right? But it comes with 5 little nozzles that go on the end. Anything from 0, which is direct pressure, to like 50 degrees, which is wide. The wider is better for cleaning a car. You'd never want to use the 0 because you could strip the paint off the vehicle with it. That's too much. I use the 15-degree one all the time on washing cars. I love that thing because I used to always regret, well, now I got to fill out a bucket with soap, rinse the car, then wash it, rinse it. I can do the car in 3 minutes now. Aside from it takes about 8-10 minutes to dry it with a chamois. With that pressure washer, it takes dirt, everything, pollen, bugs off the radiator, you you name it. Get some, and it doesn't hurt the paint if you use a low enough nozzle. You don't want the big, strongest nozzle. That's only for spot things, like taking stains out of concrete. And even then, you got to be careful because you might blast holes in the concrete. But you use a wider one. Mine happens to be the green one. Since water's a very good solvent, especially under pressure, it'll get most things off. I had there was tar on the side. I'd spray it. It'd spray the tar right off. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.